Hey guys, in this video, we're learning how to draw a really cool skull. I hope you're gonna follow along with me. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and we're gonna take it one step at a time. For this drawing, we're using alcohol-based markers, our Art for Kids Hub brand, but you can use any brand. We also have our marker paper, because we're using markers to draw and color with. And I also have 3 different colored pencils. We have black, gray, and white. Oh, and the marker colors we're using, a light gray, medium gray, and a darker gray. Also, if you don't have these supplies, don't worry. You can just use regular colored pencils or even just a plain pencil and sketch and draw the whole thing just in pencil. Now let's first start with our gray colored pencil, and we're gonna draw the main shapes for our skull. We're gonna start by drawing a circle for the top of our skull. And don't worry about making these lines perfect. I'm making them really messy. And I'm also drawing it a couple times to get the size just the way that I want it. So we're not worried about even erasing these lines either. Now let's draw a line straight down the middle to split our skull in half. And let's come down here and add a line for the bottom of the chin. Then we can draw 2 lines, 2 diagonal lines, coming down from the side of our skull. I also thought it would be fun to draw skulls since Halloween is coming up. It's still a little ways away, but it's never too early to draw Halloween stuff. I'm gonna draw this line. Let's draw it maybe a little bit further down on each side, and then we're gonna curve and connect. So we have this line as a guideline, then we got the curve coming down and connecting. Now at the bottom of the circle, we're going to add the nose. This is the bottom of the nose, so we can even add a guideline right there. And then we'll come up maybe just below half. So if this is the center of our circle, we're gonna come just below that to draw the shape of our nose. We're gonna draw 2 diagonal lines coming down on each side. And then we could draw diagonal lines coming back in. Now also there's a really thin bone right in the middle. So I'm drawing an upside down V. Now we can draw the eyes, and they're just above, we're gonna draw it just above the halfway. I'm gonna draw a guideline going straight across. And then we're also gonna start the corner of the eyes with this much space. Now let's draw the shape of the eyes. We're gonna start here. We can draw a curve in the middle. We can do this on both sides at the same time if we want. We can also come down, start coming down on each side. And then we're gonna start curving back in. And then we're gonna let's draw a guideline for the bottom of the eyes going right through the middle of the nose. That way, these guidelines help us so that they're symmetrical on both sides. So if we draw a straight line through the middle, we know that the bottom of this eye will come down here too. So I'm gonna draw it coming down to there, and then we're gonna curve up to the middle. And we're gonna do that same shape on the other side. Don't worry about making your skulls look exactly like mine. You can change yours if you want to make the eyes bigger or a little smaller. I'm gonna make these eyes look less sad by making the top not come down as much on the outside. And then we'll come down like this, touch that bottom line, and then I think we'll make them bigger on the inside. There we go. I like that shape. Let's leave it just like that, and we'll move on to some of the other details. And we could draw the cheekbone. It comes down from the eye. Then we're gonna bump out past the circle. So let's do that on the other side too. Then we're gonna come in with a diagonal line. We'll stop right there at the jaw. And same thing over here. Then we're gonna curve up back to the circle on each side. And then we're gonna curve down for the top teeth. And we are repeating the same steps. So instead of me telling you on both sides on every step, we just assume that we're always gonna add, if we drew it over here, we're always gonna add it over here. So let's come down. We're going to come down. And then we're going to draw a curve for the jaw bone. So we've got the teeth in the middle. We can even add that teeth line. I'm going to draw it right here, and we're going to draw it curving and pretty much matching the same curve down here at the bottom. Don't forget to sharpen your pencil every once in a while if it gets too dull. Now let's draw the teeth. We're going to draw the main guidelines for each of the teeth. So here's the top where they come into the skull, and then we'll draw the bottom coming in. Then we're going to divide up the teeth. So we'll divide up the top first. We're going to draw the two front teeth. Then we're going to draw the next tooth. This is also, then we're going to add another tooth. And as we go to the outside, the teeth are going to get smaller because it's curving back into the mouth. And if you wanted to make some of these teeth really sharp, I would do not the front one, not the second one, but this third one. I think it's even called canine tooth. And you could make that one sharp if you wanted to make it extra spooky. Now we're going to draw the bottom teeth. So we'll start with the two front. Then we'll draw the next set. And we'll get thinner as we go out to the edge. There's the main guidelines for our skull. It looks really cool. Now let's start coloring it. We're going to add the first layer with our light gray. This is CG1 if you're using the same set. And we're going to fill everything in solid. We'll even color over the pencil. This part will speed up, so if you need extra time, remember to pause the video. Now that we have our first layer of light gray put down, we can let it dry, and then we're going to add a second layer and start building our skull up and making it look 3D by adding shadows and shading. Now we're using the same gray. We haven't changed to a darker gray yet. We're going to add a second layer on top of the eyes. This is one of the reasons why I love using alcohol-based markers so much. Is even though we're using the same marker, we let it dry, we can layer on top. This is also because we're using our marker paper. Regular printer paper gets too wet and it'll start ripping if you add too much marker to it. Now let's also add a second layer to the nose. We can also add shading. Let's add a shadow here on the side. I'm going to draw it right next to that cheekbone that comes down and outside of the circle. And we could also add a shadow on this side of the skull. I'm going to draw a line to show you where I'm going to add this. So we're going to curve. We're going to come from the top and curve in. Then we can add a little eyebrow curve before it goes into the eye. Then we're going to show a little highlight on the bottom of the cheek right here. And then we'll come back up. Well, it's starting to look spooky. We're going to add the shadow here. And we're going to come down into the teeth. So we'll come down like this. Then we'll add a shadow on the chin. There we go. So now we're going to color everything on the right side and below this little highlight. Let's also add a shadow over here on the jawbone coming into the teeth. And we can also add it right underneath the cheek line, or the cheekbone coming into the teeth. See how just adding one more layer makes our drawing look super 3D. And we haven't even done that much. Let's next switch to the fine tip side of our gray marker, and we're going to add details for the teeth. So the top of each tooth is rounded. So I'm going to, sorry about the marker sound. It's a little squeaky. We're going to add the shape to the teeth, a curve at the top. Then we can also add the curves down here at the very bottom of these teeth. Now let's switch to CG5. This is our medium gray, and we're going to add another layer on top of what we've already done. I'm going to start with the eyes. With this layer, we're going to come in so that the eye shape is smaller. That way it looks more 3D as the light goes into the eye. Then also I left a little highlight here on the inside of the eye. And then we're gonna do the same thing over here, make it just slightly smaller. I'm gonna come over to the edge, but then we're gonna come in so that we have a light part here. We're not coloring in the eyes solid. We're leaving some of that shape of the skull you can see because the light is shining on it. This makes the eyes look 3D because they're not solid black. Then with the nose, we're gonna do the same thing, make it a little bit smaller. Oh, markers are so noisy. We're gonna come around, and then on this side, I'm gonna leave a little light on the inside of the nose. So I'll color it in, then you can see where I left some of that light shining through. Just right here on the edge, kind of like what we did for the eye over here. Now for the shading on the outside of the skull, we're gonna start here, create that same shape that we did, but further in. I'm gonna draw it coming next to the eye. We're gonna come right down the side, and we'll color in, let's leave a little shape right here. And then we'll come in, we're gonna stop at the teeth. And we'll color this in first, and then come back to the teeth. On the jaw, let's color this in solid, and we'll stop at the teeth here too. Let's also add a little bump in the center of the chin, and then I'm gonna come along the bottom of the jaw, and we'll stop here. But then let's add a really dark shadow on the bottom of the cheek, coming into the teeth, and also on the jaw. Well, maybe add a darker shadow right on the edge of the cheekbone. Let's add a shadow that comes along the side of the nose, comes down and into the teeth right here. Yeah, that looks really cool. And if you want to change your shadows too, you could even do a search on Google for reference images and use those as inspiration for your shading. So maybe you see an image that has different lighting and you want to try to change your drawing to match that lighting. That would be awesome. Now down here where this darker shadow comes into the teeth, we're going to add shadows on these teeth. I'm going to draw the top of the tooth for this first one. And then we can also draw some of the shadows coming underneath the bottom. And then let's color in the rest of the teeth over here. So I'm going to add a shadow here, and then we'll color in the rest of the teeth. Oh, we could even add some shadows in between the teeth. I really like using markers too because it feels similar to painting sometimes, where you're just putting in blocks of color. Then we'll use our colored pencils to add the detail. Now the very last marker, our CG7, is dark. We're gonna do the same thing, but make everything a little smaller. So I'm gonna start here. We're gonna add a shape. This is the darkest part of the eye. Draw it coming over here, but we're gonna leave some light right on the inside. And then we'll do the same thing on this eye. We'll make, this is the darkest part of our skull inside the eyes. Then the same thing with the nose. And then with the shadows, I'm gonna draw a shadow right here on the cheekbone. And then we can draw it coming underneath and down the jaw. Maybe you can see just a little dark shadow in here for the back of the skull. Or we could even add, maybe there's a part of the back of the head you can see just underneath the cheekbone. All right, now we're done with our markers, and let's switch to our black colored pencil. We're gonna use this to add in some of those extra details. I'm gonna start here on the side of the skull and darken in the edge, coming down into the cheekbone, but we can get lighter as we go towards the top. And we could do the same thing over here. Then let's draw along the cheekbone. Then we can darken in the edge to make things sharper. Do the same thing on this side. And also along the cheekbone. You can also use the pencil to add more shading. I'm going to add a little shadow right here to darken that in. I'm going to also outline the jawbone. Next, I'm adding more shading to the jawbone where it goes underneath the cheekbone. You can really darken it in and then gradually get lighter as you come down the jawbone. Next, I'm going to darken in the eyes, just the same shape that we did at the very beginning so that it adds more texture. I also really like how the pencil makes the drawing more sketchy and adds some texture to the drawing. Then be sure to sharpen your pencil, and we can add the teeth back in and make them more detailed. You can also make each tooth a little different so that they don't all look the same. It'll make your drawing or the skull more natural. You could also make them really crooked. You could knock some of the teeth out. Some of the teeth could be gold or even cracked. Be sure to have fun with your drawing and change it any way you want. I'm also adding a little shadow above each of the teeth to give it more texture going into the skull. And this makes it look more realistic so that this area isn't flat. This area looks a little flat on the left side of the skull. I'm switching back to my marker CG5, and we're gonna make this look more 3D. So we're gonna come up and add a shadow right here, coming down. And also, that's a little dark, so I'm gonna switch to the lighter gray and we can blend it in. There we go. That looks awesome. This area was looking really flat and now it has more dimension to it. We can also add a little shadow to the side of these teeth to make them look like they're curving back into the mouth. A fun thing to do with the markers is to also go over the pencil to smooth out the texture. It will make it darker though, so be careful it doesn't get too dark. I'm gonna add a little more shading up here on the top where the forehead is, and maybe even make the top of the skull just slightly taller. And I also want to add more shading on this side. There we go. Now it's looking more round. And we could also add a little shadow right here in between the eyes, and maybe even comes up into the forehead. And you can make these marks really sketchy too. That's fun. It adds texture to our drawing, to our skull. I'm gonna make these shadows come down further into the chin, and then also down here at the bottom, make it look more round. Feel free to add more shading. Step back from your drawing and look at it. You can even squint your eyes. Maybe something looks too light and you want to add another layer of marker to darken it so it looks more 3D. Now let's add some of the cracks in our skull. I'm going to draw one coming right here from the cheek. We're going to draw these wiggly coming up into the eye. And these can be thicker in some areas and then thinner in other spots. Let's add a crack right here on the side. We can also draw it coming all the way up to the outside of the skull. And we'll draw another crack right there. And we can do that same thing, maybe even add some cracks inside of the eyes. I'm gonna draw that same crack on the right side. And some cracks in between the eyes and also into the nose. The very last step, I'm switching to my white color pencil to add some highlights. I'm gonna start up here and just add a highlight on the left side of our skull's forehead. We can also add it maybe right here on the eyebrow, coming across. We could also add it on this side, on the eyebrow, maybe right here on the top of the nose, coming down. And then we could also add it on the teeth. We'll just lighten up some of these teeth. Not all of them, just the ones that are right in front to make them a little brighter and more 3D. Add it in a few more spots, maybe right under the eyes. Also added it down here on the chin. Ooh, also right here on the cheek. And maybe just a little highlight over here on the bottom of the right eye. When I step back from a drawing one last time, I want to still make the top of my skull's head taller. Just a little taller. There we go. We can use CG1. It's the light gray that we first started with. And we'll just make it slightly taller at the very top. And we did it. We finished drawing our spooky skull for Halloween. It looks really cool, and I'm sure your drawings turned out awesome too. I love that we only used a few markers and a few pencils to get this look. It's really awesome. And the fun part, you could use this technique for any type of skull. You could do a search on Google, maybe a cat skull, or even a dog. That would be awesome. And I hope you had a lot of fun following along with me and drawing a skull. Remember, it's okay if your drawings look different than mine. I hope they do look different. I hope you use your creativity to change your drawings. The most important thing is to have fun and to practice. And we'll see you later, art friends. Goodbye.